Before you get stuck into putting lots of records onto MapMate, it's worth taking a moment to check the settings that are being used for your data entry. So if we go into the data entry window, the things we're going to look at are in the Records menu. And the first thing to look at is Change Defaults. This is a setting that you'll need to become familiar with. When you go into Change Defaults, it opens up showing you the filters that are currently set. If you're adding plant records for your county, it's worth making sure you have chosen the relevant filters. So put the Vice County into Sites and make sure that you've got vascular plants showing as your taxon filter. If you do mostly record plants in this particular county, it's worth saving these as your favourites. If you do that, what that means is that when you OK this, and come right out of MapMate and go and make a cup of tea or whatever, when you come back and open the data entry up next time, it's all ready to go with plants and with your Vice County. You won't need to change that setting again. However, if you do need to change it to put some records for a different species group, for instance, it's just a matter of going back into the Records menu, change defaults, and you can choose something different at that stage. As well as the defaults, there are a few other settings that you can see along the top here. We don't need to worry about the first two at the moment, but we will have a quick look at the Customize one. You'll probably only need to do this once, but it gives you some choices in how MapMate displays the names of the species that you'll be dealing with. By default, it puts the scientific name first, followed by the English or vernacular name, but you can change that setting if you wish. The other thing that's worth doing is ticking this box here. When you first go into the data entry window, you'll see that there's just a single line for the comment text. You can in fact type quite a lot of information into the comment box if you need it, and by ticking the box here, if we OK this, nothing appears to happen at first, but close the data entry window, go back into it, and we've now got 3 lines or so in which to display anything that gets typed into the comment field. Back into the Records menu, change defaults again. So we've seen the defaults, we've seen Customize, and the last thing to look at here is the validation section. There are a number of checks here that MapMate can carry out each time you add a record to the database. However, what these checks do is check the record you're entering against the information that's already on your database. So if you've just got a new copy of MapMate and you're entering all your data for the first time, there's not a lot of point in ticking any of these boxes because nearly everything that you'll be entering will be new for your county or new for your site. The only one that is worth ticking right from the word go is at the bottom of the list, where you can tell MapMate to warn you if you try and enter a record that you've already entered before. So that one's certainly worth ticking. As you get more data on your database, you may well find that it's useful to tick some of these other boxes. For instance, if you tick the Vice County record box and you then add a species that's not been recorded in your Vice County before, according to the data that you have on your database, it'll just flag up a little message asking you if you're sure that you've entered the right species. If you have, that's good, it's a new record for the county, but equally it just stops you mistyping and putting in a species that you didn't mean sometimes. So we can OK those checks. So that's set up everything that we need to in the Change Defaults section of the data entry window. There's a couple of other things that are worth knowing about in this menu. One is Show Last Record, and this, as you might expect, will show you the record that you most recently saved. This can be quite useful if you're busy working through a list of records and you get called away to the phone or something and you can't quite remember where you were in the list. You can go into the Records menu, Show Last Record, and it comes up with the record that's most recently been saved. The last thing to look at the moment in the Records menu are the common settings, but before we can do that we have to fill something in. You may well realize that you're going to be using similar settings for a lot of your records. For instance, if you do a lot of recording yourself, you'll probably want to have your name in as recorder and determiner a lot of the time. You may want to use the standard field record stroke observation method. You may have a reference that you use a lot of the time, and there's one or two other fields that tend to remain constant a lot of the time. So by filling in all the fields that you're likely to use most of the time, you can then go into the Records menu and save them as your common settings. And then a little message pops up to tell you what this is doing. It will save these details, which means that you can retrieve them quickly next time you come into MapMate. So we'll OK that. We'll close our data entry window, and again we'll go off and make a cup of tea again. Come back to it, open the data entry window. We're faced with our blank screen, but this time we can go to the Records menu and get our common settings, or you can use Control-G as a shortcut. And it straight away fills in those fields that tend to be the same each time. Having filled them in, of course, if the records that you're currently entering don't match these details, you can of course change them, but it's just a quick way of getting the basics in there. So those are some useful things to have set up in your data entry part of MapMate before you get going with the thousands and thousands of records that you're going to add to the database.